It is not a real clock, yet its time represents the fate of humanity. The Doomsday Clock, a symbolic measure of how close we are to global catastrophe, has been ticking for over 75 years. Created by some of the world's leading scientists, this clock does not track hours or minutes in the traditional sense. Instead, it counts down to an apocalyptic midnight, representing the point of no return. With each movement of its hands, we are warned of existential threats, nuclear war, climate disasters, and advanced technologies spiraling out of control. But how did this ominous clock come to be? And more importantly, how close are we to midnight today? The year was 1945. World War II had just ended, leaving behind the devastating aftermath of nuclear bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Scientists who had worked on the Manhattan Project, the secret initiative that developed the atomic bomb, were haunted by what they had unleashed. Determined to prevent further destruction, these scientists formed the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Their mission was to inform the public and policymakers about the dangers of nuclear weapons and emerging threats to humanity. In 1947, the Bulletin introduced a powerful symbol, the Doomsday Clock. Designed by artist Martel Langsdorff, the clock first appeared on the cover of the Bulletin's magazine, set at 7 minutes to midnight. This was not a random time. It represented the scientists' assessment of how close humanity was to global catastrophe. Over the decades, the clock's hands have moved forward and backward, adjusting to geopolitical tensions, scientific advancements, and global crises. Each adjustment serves as a stark reminder that our survival is not guaranteed. But what determines these changes? And who decides how close we are to midnight? Let's examine how the Doomsday Clock works. Unlike ordinary clocks, the Doomsday Clock does not follow a fixed schedule. It is adjusted based on a complex evaluation of global threats. But who decides when the hand should move? The answer lies with the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists Science and Security Board, a panel of experts, including physicists, environmental scientists, and policymakers. Each year, they analyze a range of existential threats, considering political instability, nuclear proliferation, climate change, and emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and biotechnology. The process is meticulous. The board reviews intelligence reports, scientific research, and geopolitical developments. They consult with world leaders and assess the likelihood of catastrophe. Then they make a decision, move the clock forward, backward, or keep it unchanged. Throughout history, certain events have dramatically shifted the clock's hands, both toward and away from midnight. But what were the most significant moments that brought humanity closer to the brink? Let's take a look at the key historical changes. Since its creation in 1947, the Doomsday Clock has moved over 25 times, reflecting the shifting dangers of each era. Some moments have pushed humanity closer to the brink, while others have offered hope. One of the earliest adjustments came in 1953, when the United States and the Soviet Union tested thermonuclear weapons within months of each other. The clock was set to 2 minutes to midnight, the closest it had ever been at the time. The fear of an all-out nuclear war was at its peak. In contrast, the end of the Cold War brought optimism. In 1991, following the signing of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty between the U.S. and the USSR, the clock moved back to 17 minutes to midnight, the safest point in history. However, this sense of security didn't last. In the 21st century, new threats emerged. The 9/11 attacks, North Korea's nuclear tests, and the global failure to address climate change gradually pushed the clock forward. By 2020, the hands reached 100 seconds to midnight, the closest they had ever been. The Bulletin cited growing nuclear tensions, the rise of disinformation, and the lack of global cooperation in addressing existential threats. But what about today? How close are we now? As of the most recent update, the Doomsday Clock remains perilously close to midnight. On January 29, 2025, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists moved the clock forward to 89 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been. Each year, a panel of scientists and security experts evaluates global threats, and this time, their findings were alarming. Nuclear tensions are at an all-time high, with ongoing conflicts and deteriorating diplomatic relations pushing the world toward instability. Climate disasters are no longer warnings, they are reality, devastating entire regions and displacing millions. Meanwhile, AI-driven threats from deepfake disinformation to autonomous weapons have created new risks that global powers are struggling to control. Experts warn that we are in a new era of danger. The threats we face are no longer isolated. They are interconnected, compounding and accelerating. The Doomsday Clock is not just a symbol, it's a wake-up call. But how real is this danger? Should we be truly worried about the Doomsday Clock, or is it just a symbolic warning? Let's take a closer look. The Doomsday Clock is not just a dramatic symbol, it is a serious scientific assessment of global threats. But does it mean we are truly on the verge of catastrophe? Critics argue that the clock is a pessimistic alarm, designed more to provoke fear than to predict the future. After all, despite moving dangerously close to midnight, humanity has not yet faced total annihilation. Some believe that diplomacy, technological progress, and global cooperation will continue to prevent the worst outcomes. However, history has shown that complacency is dangerous. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 brought the world within moments of nuclear war. Climate disasters are increasing in frequency and intensity. Artificial intelligence and biotechnology, if mismanaged, could create new risks we are not prepared for. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist does not claim the clock predicts exact events. Instead, it serves as a warning, a reminder that our actions determine our future. The real danger lies not in the clock itself, but in ignoring its message. The Doomsday Clock is a chilling reflection of humanity's greatest challenges. It has tracked the rise and fall of global threats for nearly 8 decades, warning us when we drift too close to disaster. Question remains, will we listen before it's too late? Please comment your opinion, and don't forget to like the video. Shadow Puzzle, where every shadow tells a story. Stay with us.